Thank you for joining us for the CFP Board Business Update webinar. I am Jim Matol, and I'm pleased to be your host for today's event. For those of you who may not know me, I've taken great pride in calling myself a certified financial planner for the last 27 years. I'm also Senior Director of Financial Planning at TIAA Crefts Financial Services. Today we're broadcasting live from New York City, where the CFP Board of Directors just completed its regular November meeting. During today's webinar, you'll hear updates from the Board of Directors meeting with a focus on the 4 overarching outcomes that the CFP Board has been focused on this year. We'll cover CFP Board's work to increase public awareness of CFP professionals, its work to grow the CFP professional community, advocacy on important public policy issues with the goal of establishing financial planning as a recognized and regulated profession, and the work being done to advance financial planning as a rigorous discipline. We'll also be addressing questions from you. We received a number of questions in advance of today's program, and we'll try to address those as we move through the topics on the agenda. And we'll also take time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that come up during this live event. Before we get started, I want to cover a few technical details about this event. During today's event, if you experience issues with your audio for this presentation, or if it appears that the slides displayed don't match up with what we're speaking about, try refreshing your webinar console. On a PC, you can press F5. If you're using a Mac, press Command R. If you're on Twitter and want to post about what you hear from us today, use hashtag CFPBoardBUW. Please use the question and answer function on your screen to ask questions of our panelists. You may submit your questions at any time during this program. We'll try to address as many questions as possible during the Q&A at the end of the program. And if the panel does not get to your question today during the broadcast, the CFP Board will follow up with you to provide your answer. So let me introduce our panel. We have with us today Ray Ferrara, 2013 Chair-elect of the Board of Directors, Rich Rojeck, 2014 Chair-elect of the Board of Directors, and Kevin Keller, CFP Board CEO. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Jim, thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. Ray, I know you just wrapped up the latest meeting of the Board of Directors about an hour ago. We received a few questions from the audience asking about CFP Board's discussion on the possibility of entering the continuing education business and offering CE programs. What can you share with us about the Board's discussion on this issue?
Jim, good afternoon, and good afternoon to everyone on the webinar. Thanks for being here. The Board of Directors did have a good, intense meeting this week, and the issue of continuing education was an important one and was certainly on our agenda. As we reported in July during the last business update webinar, the CFP Board has been conducting a study on CE with the goal of improving the quality of CE available to the CFP professional. And part of the study involved getting input from CFP professionals from around the country on whether CFP Board should enter the CE business. Before we launched the study, however, we shared some background on the initiative and its purpose with our partners in the coalition, FBA and NAPA. And since that time, we've been engaged in ongoing discussions with both of them regarding their comments. The leadership of CFP Board met with the leadership of FPA in May in Palm Springs. That led to a joint board meeting in July between FPA's Board of Directors and CFP Board. The coalition met again in September in Chicago, and Kevin attended the NAPA conference in Las Vegas. In all of these meetings, including all of the correspondence that we've received, allowed us to come to fully understand the concerns of both of our coalition partners. We appreciate the importance of this issue to their organizations and the many FPA chapters that were also kind enough to write to us from around the country offering CE programming to their members. We received a significant number of comments from our stakeholders and colleagues on the issue, and the Board has reviewed and considered all of that input. I'm pleased to share that the Board did reach a decision after much discussion. In fact, the decision was reached just about an hour ago. And out of deference to our partners and those that participated with us so much over this journey of the last 6 or 7 months. We'll be reaching out to them early next week to share that decision and to be able to provide appropriately the details and answers to the questions I'm sure that many of you will have. So please be patient with us.
Great, thanks. Appreciate the update, and I know many of us are looking forward to learning more about the board's decision on the issue. Another big topic that's been discussed recently is the CFP Board's compensation disclosure and rules and definitions. We've received several questions related to the CFP Board's definition of fee only, asking whether it applies to certain situations and whether CFP Board is open to suggestions on making the definition clearer. Rich, can you give us an update on that issue?
Jim, I'll be happy to. Compensation disclosure is very important as an element of the standards of professional conduct and is really central to our mission to benefit the public. Going back to May in the year 2007, CFP Board adopted our current standards, which included updates to the rules related to compensation disclosure, as well as updated definitions for terms like commission and fee only. The process leading up to our adoption of the current standards was a long and deliberate one that incorporated stakeholder and public feedback. We had 2 public comment periods that generated a significant amount of input that was carefully considered before the updated standards were finalized. The goals for the updates were to strengthen CFP Board's highly ethical standards and present them in a manner that would be easily understood by CFP professionals and, importantly, the public that they serve. The standards were updated in a manner that reflects CFP Board's neutral stance on business and compensation models. We believe further that CFP professionals can provide ethical services under any compensation arrangement so long as our CFP professionals fully disclose those compensation arrangements to their clients in terms that are accurate and easily understood by them. Recently, our current compensation rules and definitions have become the focus of attention as a result of some high-profile enforcement actions related to this matter, compensation disclosure. Specifically, a lot of attention has been given to CFP Board's interpretation of when it is appropriate or inappropriate to use the term fee only. We think that our definition of fee only is clear, it's common sense, it's plain English as an explanation of this compensation method. But we understand that the complexity of the different business models in which CFP professionals work today doesn't always make it easy to determine how to characterize compensation with a simple label. I want to assure everyone listening to this call that our board of directors and executive leadership team are fully involved, fully engaged with respect to this issue. Our goal is to benefit the public by facilitating compliance with our standards. That's inherent in our mission as an organization. We have devoted a significant amount of time and effort to providing CFP professionals with resources and guidance to assist them in understanding and complying with these standards. We've held webinars, produced guidance documents. We've mailed notices to all CFP professionals about the importance of clear and accurate compensation disclosure to clients. And we've addressed many individual questions on this issue. In fact, just recently at the board meetings, there were reporting to us that something like 400 inquiries have been received, which most, if pretty much all, have been responded to. In other words, giving guidance to questions that our CFP certificants had on compensation disclosure. We're making every effort to facilitate full understanding of and compliance with our compensation disclosure rules and definitions. And we appreciate the suggestions and the feedback that we have received. The board welcomes constructive dialogue on our standards and wants to fully understand all of the issues and concerns of our CFP professionals. But as we engage in these discussions, it's important that we remain committed to the goal of providing the public with clear and transparent information about how clients pay for the services they receive from CFP professionals.
You know, Jim, I'd really like to thank both Ray and Rich and the rest of the board for their engagement on the issues that we've discussed today. The compensation disclosure issue is an especially important one that relates not only to the integrity of our standards and enforcement process, but also, and I think most importantly, to consumer trust. As I shared last month in a written message to our stakeholders, the lack of trust in the financial services industry is a huge barrier to the public seeking the advice they need. A significant factor in creating the mistrust is inadequate disclosure of potential incentives to provide conflicted advice. All of us at CFP Board believe that the public needs financial advice now more than ever. We want to make sure that CFP professionals are leading the way in establishing the public trust and providing clear and accurate disclosure of compensation and conflicts of interest. I know we've received some specific questions from our audience about how our compensation rules and definitions relate to their specific business model and client engagements. While we can't address those with sufficient detail today, we will be passing those questions on to Michael Shaw and our professional standards team for a full response. If any CFP professionals have questions on compensation disclosure or other aspects of our standards, I encourage you to review the compliance resources available on our website, cfp.net/compliance, or send specific questions to us at standards@cfpboard.org.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. There really are a lot of compliance-related resources available to review. Ray, what can you share about the CFP Board's overarching priorities at this time?
Well, the Board has established 4 overarching outcomes last year, and to focus on the CFP Board's work and to give direction to Kevin and his executive leadership team. These 4 outcomes relate closely to CFP Board's core mission to benefit the public by granting the CFP certification and upholding it as the recognized standard in personal financial planning. Awareness of CFP certification is one of the first of these overarching outcomes. This includes the public awareness program that we have been participating in for just about 2 years now. The outcome of the awareness also extends to awareness within the financial services industry and among policymakers and thought leaders. The second overarching outcome is growth, and we've been very clear in all of our discussions of this outcome that there will be no lowering of the standards. And I am pleased to report that as of yesterday, we went over 69,000 CFP professionals here in the United States. The recognition and regulation outcome relates to our long-term goals to see financial planning recognized and regulated as a bona fide profession, and the authority outcome relates to a number of opportunities before us to advance financial planning as a rigorous discipline that is relevant not only to educators and professionals, but as most importantly to the public. These 4 overarching outcomes, Jim, highlight the key aspects of our core objectives and give us a clear focus as an organization and the Board to direct the efforts of the staff.
And Ray, what can you share with us about the progress towards the first of these outcomes, awareness?
The public awareness is a central part of the awareness outcome. It's one of our highest priorities, given its importance for the future of the CFP certification and the financial planning profession. CFP Board launched its first major advertising campaign in April 2011. So the campaign has, as I said a few minutes ago, has now been ongoing for about 2.5 years. Its overall objective is to increase the awareness of CFP professionals. The public awareness campaign includes print and online advertisements as well as radio ads run on NPR and TV ad, which has been broadcast on national television cable networks including AMC, CNN, ESPN, Fox News, HGTV, the History Channel, MSNBC, and the Travel Channel, to name a few. All of the advertisements direct people to our consumer website, letsmakeaplan.org, where they can learn more about CFP certification and, most importantly, look up a CFP professional.
Right, and we've had several questions come in asking about the impact the advertising campaign is having. Ray, what data can you share with us on the results?
Jim, I think it's very positive. Since the campaign's launch, we've taken opportunities along the way, as we promised we would, to measure its impact and to provide data that can be used to fine-tune the campaign. A benchmarking study was conducted before the campaign's launch in April of 2011 to give us a starting point for measuring progress. Last year, at the end of, we did a follow-up study, and this year we did the second follow-up study to see where we were at the end of 2 years into the campaign. And I'm pleased to share that across all of these studies, we see consistent and significant signs of positive momentum across multiple measures and across multiple audiences. Significantly, we've seen a very positive momentum in the unaided awareness, meaning top of mind, among the target market that is for the mass affluent initiator, which is a person between the ages of 25 and 64 with at least $100,000 of investable assets and up to $1 million. And of course, it's seen by many more, but that's our target. In the latest brand tracking study shows that we've increased that top of mind or first mention awareness by 7 points since the start of the campaign, and total unaided awareness by 4 points. When we set out, we expected to be able to reach a 4-point increase in awareness over 4 years, so we're thrilled to have reached that level in only 2. The positive results we've seen are exceptional, as our campaign is funded at a fraction of what leading financial advertisers spend. And as a member of the board, we're very thankful to staff for following the board's direction to put together this successful campaign. We shared with you in July that the board was reviewing the campaign's progress to date and adopted a resolution authorizing the continuation of the campaign. We made it clear that we wanted to continue to see the campaign utilize sound research that would verify that we were doing what we promised, and we continue to monitor it, and we will be doing other follow-up studies. We also emphasize that we want the campaign's execution to continue to reflect CFP Board's neutral stance on business models and compensation structures. And it's important for you to know that we are committed to being excellent steward of these funds. The funding contributed to the public awareness campaign is dedicated to the direct expenses of the campaign, and if you will, is in a lockbox, and is not used to fund any other CFP Board initiatives. The funding of the campaign is substantial, but it is nowhere near the advertising budgets of other organizations, as I said, in the financial services industry. And at our board meeting this week, we did get to see some of the upcoming changes that will be made to the campaign going forward.
Great. So some impressive results, and for a campaign of this type, what should we expect for 2014 going forward as the campaign continues?
The campaign advertisements direct people, as mentioned before, to the consumer website, letsmakeaplan.org, where they can learn more about the CFP certification and to look up a CFP professional. Since the campaign began, our marketing team has been evaluating the success and our advertising and looking for ways to ensure that we get the most valuable dollar spent that we can. For example, there have been opportunities to introduce some advertorial type messages alongside some of the print ads. This year we secured opportunities to do something similar with some of our television advertising on HGTV and National Geographic television. The ads have focused on the message of bringing your finances together with the help of a CFP professional, and the marketing team has continued to test the messages which we think will work best. So based on the results of this testing, we will see some brand new creative work, as I mentioned earlier, and that will be part of the campaign as we go into 2014. Specific plans for media buys are still underway, and you can see some of the media are likely to be carrying the campaign advertising next year. And when the 2014 media plan is finalized, you will be able to find a copy of it at the Public Awareness Campaign Toolkit, www.cfp.net/toolkit.
Great. Thanks, Ray. And one of the audience members is asking how marketing efforts are impacting the increased awareness of the consumer client in relation to the improvement in advisor usage rates. So how is this being monitored and tracked?
Jim, thanks for the question. If you would look at it like a funnel, awareness is at the top and leads to preference and intent. In other words, people tend to be aware before they become familiar, and then they become familiar before they see the relevance. We hope that everyone who becomes aware of CFP certification seeks out a CFP professional. But the reality is that not everyone will immediately take that step. So it's not easy to quantify how many take that step. So we encourage you to talk about your CFP certification when you speak to potential clients, as I'm sure most everyone does. Ask them what drew them to you and whether your CFP certification played a role in that decision. And I hope all of you will consider how you can help us extend the reach of the campaign. Our advertising dollars are focused on national outlets, so there's much that people can do to help share the campaign materials in their local communities by using the resources at the Public Awareness Campaign Toolkit. And the toolkit includes such things as customized letters, downloadable artwork, advertisements, video files, and a social media guide. I hope everyone listening in today will take time to look at the toolkit if you haven't already and find ways to use the resources. And as the campaign continues, the toolkit will continue to be updated with new materials.
Great. And the toolkit has a lot of great materials, but do you have a recommendation for a CFP professional as to how they can get started with the toolkit resources?
Well, using the CFP mark artwork from the toolkit is a great way to get started, and to make sure that your potential clients have seen the campaign advertising connect with the messages you've heard. When the campaign launched in 2011, we introduced a new plaque design to the CFP mark logo, which is available in 7 different styles and formats. Can be put online, lapel pin, etc. Consider using the new logo on your email signature, your business cards, and of course your website. That can be an easy first couple of steps for CFP professionals to highlight their certified status and connect themselves to the images consumers are seeing through the campaign.
You know, Ray, the individual efforts really do contribute a lot to our awareness goal. And the awareness generated through our paid advertising is enhanced significantly by what we call earned media, CFP Board's public relations and consumer outreach activities. We call this earned media to differentiate it from the advertising and marketing we are paying for through the public awareness campaign. We have generated significant positive coverage in the consumer media and around 2 billion total media impressions to date during 2013. If we tried to buy the coverage that we've enjoyed through the earned media during the first few months of 2013, we estimate that it would have cost us about $35 million. Much of the earned media is in the consumer market is due to the dedicated efforts of our consumer advocate and our team of CFP Board ambassadors around the country. The media is increasingly turning to our consumer advocate and our ambassadors for their personal finance stories. You see here some of the prominent placements we've seen in recent months. A number of these articles were widely syndicated, reaching readers in local markets from coast to coast. I'd like to thank all of our ambassadors for their great work in representing CFP certification.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And I would guess that the prominent display of the CFP marks through the public awareness campaign and CFP Board's media outreach should also help generate interest in the profession. Rich, can you share what the CFP Board is doing to achieve its growth outcome?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Jim. One of our core objectives is to ensure that financial professionals recognize, seek, and maintain CFP certification. Today, there are 69,000 and change. Kevin, exactly how many?
69,006 this morning.
To be exact. Certified in the U.S. by CFP Board.
You know, Rich, there are, worldwide, there are over 150,000 CFPs. So while CFP started here in the U.S., and it certainly has spread to 24 territories worldwide around the globe, there are now more outside the U.S. than inside.
Yeah, interesting dynamic. But back to the U.S., our 69,006 tally is about 20% more than we had 5 years ago, and it reflects steady growth across all business models, from large firms to small firms. But the total number of CFP professionals is only a fraction of the total number of practicing advisors. If you use Cerulli as your source, from the end of 2012, or based upon end of 2012 data, only about 18% of the total number of practicing advisors are practicing CFP professionals currently. So as we continue our work to raise awareness of the value CFP professionals provide, we expect to see growing consumer demand for their financial planning services, and hence growth in the number of CFP professionals. Certainly there's much opportunity for growth there.
So Rich, in what ways will you pursue this growth?
A number of avenues. The academic programs that offer a CFP Board approved curriculum are great partners in support of the CFP certification. Their input and insights have been very valuable to us in identifying ways to keep people engaged in pursuit of certification. We want to help increase enrollment and student retention at our registered programs and help these program graduates keep moving forward on their path to CFP certification. We also have great opportunities to work with the financial services firms where those graduates are likely to seek work. Several firms with a large number of CFP professionals have really embraced CFP certification. We are working with other firms and encouraging them to follow suit. And as we announced this summer, we have added a new women's initiative as part of our growth strategies. And as was previously mentioned, while growth of the number of CFP certificants is a primary goal, the board of directors has made it very clear to Kevin and his team that we must maintain our high standards as we grow. In other words, it's not growth at any expense. Just continuing along this line of thought, only about 23% of the 69,000 CFP professionals are female. When you look at other professionals like education, medicine, and law, you see much more gender parity. We are working to identify the challenges women face when becoming certified and beginning their career in financial planning. And we want to identify solutions to increase the ranks of female CFP professionals. To lead this initiative, CFP Board has appointed a Women's Initiative Advisory Panel made up of leading experts in the financial planning field. Research is underway to collect original data to explain why more women are not pursuing financial services careers and specifically CFP certification. We also expect, or we do expect, to release a report this year, 2014, next year, that addresses all of our findings and makes recommendations for potential solutions. This year, we also introduced some new communication streams focused on individuals pursuing CFP certification. In the past, CFP Board has not had much contact with individuals interested in CFP certification until after they had completed an education program and had registered for the CFP exam. That obviously was not ideal and led to many missed opportunities for us to support and encourage individuals along their way to CFP certification. Today, we have a direct marketing campaign underway focused on providing individuals interested in CFP certification with information they will need and encouragement to move forward in the process. A monthly Get Certified e-newsletter is going out to individuals who have requested a copy of our certification requirement guidelines and to people who have created CFP Board accounts. And we're able to send more individualized messages for people at certain stages of the certification process as well. When appropriate, we are urging them to register for an upcoming exam or providing tips on how to report professional experience. We're also working on expanding the number of people reached by these communication streams through a direct marketing campaign. People interested in learning more about CFP certification and careers in financial planning can go to our microsite, getcfpcertified.net. There they can download a brief publication that gives a helpful overview of the certification process and opt in to receive the Get Certified e-newsletter and other communications. CFP Board has historically relied on individuals to come to us. With this program, we're actively seeking out and assisting individuals in becoming certified. While we won't see an immediate boost to the number of CFP professionals due to the time frames for some of the certification requirements, we are learning a lot through these new programs.
Great. And Rich, we have one from the audience. They're noting that it looks like the number of candidates taking the CFP exam seems to be declining. Is this correct, and do you see this as an ongoing trend?
Jim, if you look at the fluctuation of examinee numbers over time, you'll see that they vary quite a bit from year to year. We definitely had an increase in exam takers in 2011, which you may recall was before the capstone course requirement was imposed or became effective in 2012, and also a new exam blueprint took effective in 2012 as a result of the job assessment survey that was done in the prior year, and that then was incorporated into the exam questions. So there are misconceptions also about the exam out there that we're working to dispel. Last month, CFP Board held 2 webinars to help demystify some of the initial certification requirements. One webinar addressed what candidates can expect on exam day. The other addressed the experience requirement and provided insights on how CFP Board determines acceptable experience. We want to assure people that while the CFP certification requirements are high, they are appropriate and achievable, in our view. CFP Board is providing resources and assistance to help people through the process. We've also been taking a look at improvements to this process. Examples being efficiencies to the exam scoring process earlier this year, which allowed us to shorten the time frame between the exam date and the exam score release date. What used to take 8 weeks long has now been reduced to only 5. Still probably an eternity from an exam taker standpoint, but a very significant improvement. For the November exam, we're also conducting a pilot program offering pre-qualification to individuals with qualifying experience. Experience is typically reported following the release of the exam scores, and the processing time potentially adds another few weeks. The background check process also takes time. For interested November exam registrants, we're taking care of those steps before they receive their exam score. Pre-qualified individuals will be able to become certified immediately after they receive a passing exam score in December. We know people are very anxious to receive exam scores and to become certified, and we certainly are looking forward to seeing how this pilot program works out. I would also ask those listening today to encourage your qualified colleagues to register for an upcoming exam, and encourage your colleagues who may be interested in pursuing a career as a CFP professional to let us know by creating an online account.
Thanks, Rich. And, personal encouragement goes a long way in motivating people to take that next step professionally. So, Kevin, can you review with us some of the public policy issues CFP Board and the Financial Planning Coalition have been engaged with?
Sure will, Jim. Thank you. The long-term goal for our engagement with public policy is the recognition and regulation of financial planners. We will continue our work with the Financial Planning Coalition to evaluate strategies to advance this goal while we continue to advocate within public policy debates related to financial services for positions that benefit the public. Advocacy for a uniform fiduciary standard is one of the key issues on the public policy agenda for CFP Board and the Financial Planning Coalition. CFP Board and the Coalition Board, the Coalition itself, support the extension of a uniform fiduciary standard of conduct to broker-dealers when providing personalized investment advice to retail customers. Again, consistent with the Dodd-Frank language of being no less stringent than the 40 Act. We believe investors need to be protected by having broker-dealers operate under a fiduciary standard that is, again, no less stringent than the standard that currently applies to investment advisors. Recently, the fiduciary standard has been back in the spotlight. In March, the SEC released a request for information and data about the benefits and costs of putting in place a uniform fiduciary standard for broker-dealers. We were pleased to see the SEC take this additional step toward the possible introduction of a fiduciary rulemaking, as they were authorized to do by the Dodd-Frank legislation. However, there were some assumptions in that request for information that we found troubling and raised concerns that the standard the SEC was describing in its request would not be consistent with that no less stringent requirement. As we spoke to our colleagues in the Financial Planning Coalition and with other consumer industry and state regulatory organizations, we recognized that we were not the only ones concerned with the SEC's assumptions. Last June, CFP Board joined with 8 other organizations to send a letter expressing those concerns to SEC Chair Mary Jo White. We noted that the SEC assumptions appeared to leave out key elements of a fiduciary standard, such as the obligation to act in the best interest of the customer. We reiterated our support of a uniform fiduciary standard, but noted the assumption appeared to describe a fiduciary duty that would be weaker than that currently imposed under the Advisors Act, and a duty that came close to being a version of the suitability standard with some additional conflict of interest disclosures. The Financial Planning Coalition also filed its own official response to the SEC's request for information. We addressed some of the key flaws in the SEC's assumptions, and we also provided data from a new study that supports the adoption of a fiduciary standard. The study, conducted by the ITE group, showed that a client-first standard does not limit advice to mass market clients. It showed that broker-dealers working under a client-first standard experienced greater success compared with those operating under a suitability standard and without a significant increase in cost, which is one of the key objections we frequently hear. The broker-dealers responding to the survey who were already operating under a fiduciary standard reported stronger asset growth and revenue growth. We will continue to work with the SEC to encourage it to proceed with the adoption of a uniform fiduciary standard consistent with Dodd-Frank, and we will continue to monitor. At the same time, I know an issue that's important to many CFP professionals, the Department of Labor's work addressing the fiduciary standard within the context of ERISA. We are confident that the DOL and the SEC will work together to come up with appropriate and coordinated definitions of fiduciary, but there has been strong opposition to the DOL's work on this issue. Last month, a bill was introduced in the House of Representatives that would delay or prevent the SEC and the DOL from moving forward with fiduciary rules. The Financial Planning Coalition delivered a letter to members of Congress strongly opposing this bill, which at least seemed to us, Jim, as a backdoor attempt to undermine some of the important investor protection provisions contained in Dodd-Frank. That bill, unfortunately, passed the House. The coalition will continue to oppose this legislation as it moves into the Senate.
And is there any opportunity for CFP professionals to lend support to the coalition's work?
Given the current political climate, it is not all that likely that the Senate will take up this bill in the near future. We are watching to see what the Senate chooses to do with this legislation, and we will be contacting CFP professionals if occasion arises for a grassroots campaign.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kevin. And what can you share about the CFP Board's fourth overarching outcome, authority?
Our authority outcome is focused on advancing financial planning as a rigorous discipline that is relevant not only to educators and professionals but also to the public. The body of knowledge for the financial planning profession is something that we want to see grow both at the level of theory and practice. And we believe that the discipline of financial planning has important connections to other disciplines as well, and that we can contribute to and benefit from the knowledge of those other disciplines. We have been discussing a number of initiatives and opportunities related to this outcome and hope to report on a number of these during the coming year. CFP Board's work to improve the quality of continuing education is one initiative that falls under our authority goal. It's related to our core objective of competency and our work to establish and uphold rigorous competency standards for CFP certification. Our first completed initiative under authority is our Financial Planning Competency Handbook, which was released last spring. This is an achievement that brought together expertise from the academic and practitioner communities, featuring work by 21 contributors. The book comes with complimentary access to a practice test bank and an optional online CE course administered by the publisher, John Wiley, that awards up to 28 continuing education credits accepted by CFP Board. The topics covered in the handbook are rooted in our job analysis study. This is the world's largest research project on the financial planning body of knowledge. It covers theory and practice, the handbook does, and was written to be broadly relevant to practitioners as well as students and educators. I'm pleased with how this came together and want to thank all of the folks who contributed to the project. If you haven't picked up a copy, you can get one of those on Amazon. So, Jim?
Great, thanks. So when we covered a lot here today, so now let's turn the program back over to more questions from our audience. So let me read a question from Elliot, and if you don't mind, I'll direct this to you, Ray. What are you doing with the additional fees you have been collecting from everybody?
Elliot, as we mentioned, the money that we've collected has been put into a lockbox where 100% of that money is being used towards the public awareness campaign, and the campaign is totally funded by those additional fees. And I can assure you that the board is rigorously watching those dollars on your behalf to make sure that they're being used the way we said they would be, and continue to be pleased with the progress of the campaign and some of the new information that we saw at this board meeting.
Great, thank you. And I'll address this question to you, Kevin, from Joe. With regards to the public awareness program, was any consideration given to the interest of those of us who merely want the certification and don't need or even particularly want a massive ad program for practicing CFP professionals?
You know, Jim, we considered this as well as a number of other options for funding the campaign. In the end, everyone who holds CFP certification, whether they're practicing or not, benefits from the increased public awareness of its value.
Great, thanks. And then while I have you, Kevin, we have one that came in from Bruce. What input do CFPs have on the direction of the public awareness campaign? It feels as if a private firm was engaged and did a good job, but it doesn't feel that the CFPs themselves have been sought out for guidance on what we feel would be helpful.
Sure. Well, Bruce, thank you for that question. First of all, while we couldn't make the campaign available to 69,000 folks for their opinion, we do seek practitioner input on the campaign. But what I would say to Bruce, I think, when we were first putting the campaign together, I was out on the road for weeks talking to CFP professionals about the campaign, and I would ask them, what do you think, Ray, is most important? And Ray might say, well, I think it's the fact that we have high standards. And I'd ask another CFP professional, and they'd say, what's the exam? It's really hard. In the end, while we care very much what Rich and Ray think about the campaign, we care even more about what is compelling to the target market, because we're looking for a message that is, again, compelling to that target market. So while we do get input from CFP practitioners, we spend a great deal of time and resources crafting a message and a campaign that is that really grabs the attention of the target market.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. And Jeffrey's asking a question that I'm going to address to you, Ray. What efforts are being made to educate the public regarding the importance of the CFP designation?
Jeff, we're working through a number of initiatives that the board has directed the staff to work on. And that is, first of all, as we've talked about several times this afternoon, the public awareness campaign, which highlights the CFP certification and the qualities that make the CFP professionals stand out from those advisors that don't have a designation or perhaps don't have the CFP designation. Our media outreach has highlighted the need for people to be able to identify quality credentials, and we certainly promote the CFP certification as the standard that people should seek when looking for a financial planning professional. We've also been addressing the issue of consumer confusion about the proliferation of financial services designations, the alphabet soup, if you will, through our public policy and media outreach. We've been working with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and other agencies to address the need for consumers to be able to identify meaningful financial credentials. And in fact, we're also on the Hill making sure that our policymakers there understand the significance of the CFP certification, and just within the past couple of weeks actually had an opportunity to meet with all 5 SEC commissioners along with some of our coalition partners.
Great, thanks. And, Kevin, I'm a CFP too, so I get to ask a question too. I understand the CFP Board released the results of its 2013 survey of CFP professionals. Can you give us some highlights of the survey?
Yeah, I think the top-line results continue to be very impressive. We do this survey every couple of years, seeking to understand the attitudes of CFP professionals. 91% of the CFP professionals that we surveyed, and again it was a random sample, 91% are satisfied with their career choice in financial planning. Can you guys, what other profession, you're all meeting with clients all the time, what other profession comes anywhere close to 91% folks being very, not just satisfied, but very satisfied with the career choice?
That's quite incredible.
92% say they are very satisfied with their decision to pursue CFP certification. Now, these are people, obviously, that passed the test, so, that might say something. 76% of the respondents strongly agree that CFP certification contributes directly to their own personal professional success. And I think maybe, finally, a couple other statements that top-line notes. 97% of the people in the survey agree with the statement that financial planning should be recognized as a profession. I think that's a surprisingly high number. And 84% of the survey respondents agree that a fiduciary standard of care is appropriate for all, interestingly, for all financial services professionals.
Great, thanks. And while I have you talking, Kevin, let me address a question from Jean to you. Jean asked, what are you doing to get the CFP certification recognized by the states, the way the CPAs and lawyers are, to be allowed to give insurance advice without a license to sell insurance?
You know, Gene, we would love to have CFP marks as well recognized and regulated as the CPA title. Our public policy team and our partners in the Financial Planning Coalition are looking at a number of options for establishing financial planning as a recognized and regulated profession, including strategies for achieving that at a state-by-state level. This is a long-term goal, and while we believe good progress is being made, the accounting profession has been around a lot longer than financial planning.
Right, obviously. Okay, and we have a question from Frank. Is the CFP board working towards a practical standard definition of fee only with other members of the Financial Planning Coalition? If not, why not? If so, when will you communicate to the CFP professional? And Rich, I'm going to ask you to take that one.
Okay. Well, this is certainly an important topic of discussion for CFP Board and our coalition, Financial Planning Coalition, which includes, of course, the Financial Planning Association, as well as NAFA and ourselves. So it's certainly been a part of the discussion and will continue to be so. We believe the profession is best served by a single definition for important terms like this, and we'll continue to work with them on that issue.
Great. Okay, thank you. And let's see, we have Gene, who is asking why is
a different Gene.
A different Gene. That's right. A Gene with a G. The other Gene was with a J. Why is the question of how we are compensated still being asked of us? To my knowledge, no other profession attempts to define their members by their method of compensation. As long as we disclose this information to our clients and we meet all CFP obligations, disclose conflicts, is that not enough? And Ray, I'm going to ask you to take that one.
Gene, thank you for the question. The question around disclosure of compensation is a big one, and it amazes me that no other profession defines itself by how it gets paid. But that is the nature of how our business has developed over the past 20 years. There are certainly people who feel that it is important to use very short descriptors of who they are by how they get paid. The key is to provide proper disclosure about compensation, about all of the potential conflicts, eliminate those conflicts where possible, manage them where it isn't, and to stay on top of that with your client as things may change. So I'm with you on that one, Gene, on a personal level, that we do have to disclose. I should say you do not have to disclose. If you go to our website, we give you the option to say whether you are commission only, commission and fee only, or not provided, meaning that if you don't feel that it's important to your relationship with a client in terms of, or a prospective client at our website, you do not have to provide that particular information.
Great. And I have another one, Ray, from Dan. We are very interested in the outcome of the CE discussion. When can we hear from the board on this?
Dan, I'm sure there is frustration about us not coming right out and announcing what the decision was of the board this past week. But as I mentioned earlier, we literally completed the continuing education discussion about an hour before we got on this. I would hope that any of you who have served on a board understand the importance of sharing that message with your partners first. You owe them that obligation, and we promise that we will be talking with them early next week. In fact, an invitation has already been sent to them to do that, and as I said earlier, please be patient. I appreciate your frustration, but we'll get there.
Right. Thank you, Ray. And we have a question that came in from Dennis. And Kevin, I think I'm going to address this your way. Why is the board micromanaging CFP licenses, especially in the fees versus commission compensation?
Well, Jim, that's an interesting perspective that Dennis has. Quite simply, we don't. CFP Board is compensation and business model neutral, and we don't require CFP professionals to choose any particular compensation method or define their compensation using any particular phrase. If you disclose your compensation method to your clients and prospective clients along with any conflicts and do so clearly and accurately, you have met our compensation disclosure requirements.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. And let's see, next we have from John. John asked, please explain why any CFP professional can claim to be a fiduciary but are allowed to continually opt out of being one through a disclosure statement. And Rich, I'm going to ask you to take that.
Yes. John, let me disagree, if I could, maybe with the premise of your question, and in the sense that, or let me address it this way. All CFP professionals are held to a fiduciary standard when providing financial planning services. So that means you cannot opt out through a disclosure statement.
Okay, so great clarification. And we have Cindy is asking, the term wealth management is gaining traction with consumers and advisors. It may even be perceived as something better than financial planning for affluent households. How are we going to educate the public that a CFP professional is the most qualified person to provide wealth management? How are we going to prevent non-certified advisors from gaining public trust using a term that sounds good but basically means nothing? And Kevin, I'm going to throw that one to you.
You know, we've seen a number of phrases and titles come and go over the years. Many of them, like wealth management, are really more of a specialty within the discipline of financial planning. The phrase financial planning is obviously important to CFP Board and the rest of the profession. So, you know, there's a flavor of the month out there, but CFP Board is committed to raising the awareness of CFP certification and the value of working with a CFP professional.
Great, thank you. And let's see, we have a question from Patrick. Patrick asks, can we be CFP certified in Canada? And Ray, why don't you take that one?
Patrick, the CFP designation is recognized in Canada. In fact, Canada is one of the largest countries with CFP certificates in the world, certainly among the top 5. The difficulty is that you're recognized as a CFP professional here in the United States and are certified by the CFP board here, so you really can't carry it up to Canada. You'd have to comply with their rules, and that is controlled by an organization similar to CFP Board called the Financial Planning Standards Council. And you can find out more about certification outside of the United States, not only in Canada, but actually in 23 other territories around the world, by going to the Financial Planning Standards Board website, which is www.fpsb.org. That's FP, Financial Planning Standards Board.org.
If I might add also, Ray, we have a good working relationship with our neighbors to the north. So we're the CFP Board in the U.S. It's the Financial Planning Standards Council in Toronto. And so I would encourage them also just to reach out to fpsc.ca for more information.
You know, Kevin, it would probably be appropriate to say we just were with many of our cohorts from around the world, and there are more CFP professionals collectively outside of the United States now than there are inside the United States, and it's really very interesting to see the passion that is displayed in so many countries, and particularly the many of the emerging countries around the world. And I think at the last meeting, Israel was admitted as the 24th member, now having over 120 CFP professionals.
You know, Ray, it's passion that you see in the U.S., but it doesn't end at our borders.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. We have an interesting question from Patrick. Rich, I'm going to throw your way. Other professional membership groups, and they're quoting the AICPA or the ABA, exist to benefit their memberships as well as the public. Does the CFP Board have any immediate plans to begin supporting their certificants, or does the Board plan to solely remain a public interest entity?
Well, Jim, we get this question a lot. CFP Board, just again, is to make sure all of our listeners are clear, is not a membership organization. So, we don't have members. We have certificants or CFP professionals that have been granted the use of the mark. So the comparison to, for example, the AICPA or ABA, the bar, should really be made to groups like the Financial Planning Association or NAPA, which of course our membership associations do have members. CFP Board is a certification granting body, and our mission is to benefit the public. We do that in large part through the good work provided to the public by our certificants. So supporting certificants, for example, the public awareness campaign is intended to raise the awareness in the eye or the mind of the public, but that obviously ultimately can benefit our CFP certificants or professionals. And so as a result, supporting certificants with activities such as this and acting in the public interest are not mutually exclusive and are both important parts of what we do at the CFP Board.
Great. Thanks, Rich. And a question from Dennis. What is the retention rate among CFP licensees? How many CFP professionals give up their designation and for what reasons? Why are the number of CFP professionals declining every year? And Kevin, I would let you answer that one.
Well, actually, the number of CFP professionals has been growing every year. In fact, we are in our 28th year. The number of CFP professionals has gone up every year except one. And contrary to what you might expect, that one year was 1996. Even through the tough economic times of 2007, 8, and 9, especially 8 and 9, we have grown. The retention rate for professionals has been very strong. We're well into the upper 90% on a regular basis, and the primary reason that we hear that folks are choosing to give up their certification is usually there is retirement.
Great, thank you. And we had some great questions, but we are just about out of time. I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to share some parting thoughts. So why don't we start with you, Ray?
Jim, thank you very much. I want to personally thank you for your work here today and taking time away from all of the good things that you're doing at TIAA Craftsman in the financial planning world. All of us at CFP Board appreciate the support that so many people provide to the important initiatives we have underway, and it's just impossible to thank all of the great volunteers that help us. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of CFP Board's leadership during this time. We do live in interesting times, as someone once said, and we are trying to take a forward-looking, proactive approach. We've generated a lot of positive momentum for all of our priorities and overarching outcomes during 2013 under Nancy Kissner's leadership, and Nancy conducted her last in-person board meeting where the board thanked her for her valuable service on this board over the past 6 years, and I hope that someday those that are listening and many more will come to fully appreciate what a great 2 years she had as part of the leadership of the board.
Well, I'm also looking forward to 2014 and the progress that promises for CFP Board's mission and priorities. CFP Board plays an important role in the development of the profession, and it is really rewarding personally to be a part of it. I want to encourage you all to stay engaged with the work that we're doing and to get involved with CFP Board's initiatives. There will be many opportunities in the coming year for CFP Board professionals and other stakeholders to make meaningful contributions to our cause. You can do that through volunteering and also through continued participation in events like these. To find out more about volunteer opportunities and to submit your name for consideration if you're interested, visit our website and complete the form at cfp.net/volunteers. We are thankful to be a part of a profession with so many good people willing to contribute their time and expertise to further our shared goals.
And I want to take just a moment before Kevin shares his parting remarks, just to say how much we appreciate the passion that everyone has around the issues that we are facing. We will be stronger and better because we will all be working hard on trying to resolve some of these interesting issues. We are a growing, emerging profession, and I just wanted to take the time, particularly given all of the emails that we've gotten over the past week to 10 days, to recognize all of that passion.
Indeed. Well, Ray, thank you, and thanks to Rich. Before we wrap up, I just want to thank you, as well as our board chair, Nancy Kistner, and our other 11 board members for their dedication and active engagement on many important and challenging issues over the last year. This has been a very busy year, and I think we've probably asked more of our board members this year than we have in any recent year, at least since I've been here. Even with the high volume of activity and challenges, I continue to look forward to coming to work each day, and as a key factor in that is the strong alignment that the board and our staff share in supporting the organization's mission and priorities. I appreciate the board's engagement and dedication to making the right decisions for the long-term viability of CFP Board and CFP certification, and I'm thankful for all of the energy and creativity and passion that our volunteers and staff are bringing as we work together to realize these shared goals.
Great, and thank you, Kevin, Ray, and Rich, for sharing the update on the CFP Board's work, and to everyone for joining us on today's webinar. A recording of this presentation will be posted on the CFP Board website within the next week, and CFP Board will follow up with any of you who asked questions that we did not have a chance to answer today. The CFP Board welcomes your comments regarding this program and your suggestions for future programs at webinars@cfpboard.org. Thank you for listening, and good day.